If God has you in a time of intense heat and pressure, it is not to destroy you. It is preparing you for acres of diamonds. Success is a 4-letter word. Stay. I know that there's time for change. I know that there's time when we're in toxic relationships and we have to distance ourselves. We all get that. But most of the time, when intense heat and pressure comes, we see it as our enemy. We see it as the worst thing. I'm going through a fiery trial, heat and pressure. When God says the only thing that's going to bring out of your life the diamonds, the blessings, the purpose, the destiny, the calling is intense heat and pressure, and you standing there long enough to not give up. Everything you're dreaming of is on the other side of not giving up. And I don't want somebody else to take the plow that God put in my hands, the mule that He gave me, the acreage that He gave me in life. Somebody else could take that same plow, that same land, and find diamonds in it. Somebody else could take that same marriage, that same family, that same setback, layoff. That single mother can just say, I don't have any help, or she can realize God has given me these children and they're like a field of raw diamonds. And how do you know that those children aren't going to rise up and call you blessed like Proverbs 31 said they would do, and buy you a house if you raise them right and love God? I'm telling you, your life is loaded with acres of diamonds. And what I learned early is you can't have it without the intense heat and pressure. You can't get the diamonds of life. Nobody just gets there. When I look at people like you, some people look and say, wow, look at that ministry that they have. Look at what God has trusted them with. And what they have no idea of is what in the world, what kind of intense heat and pressure, and how long? You know, I think even this pandemic, could it be that God is saying America has forgot who she is? That it's still acres of diamonds. We've got problems, we've got injustices, we've got all kinds of issues, but I want to say we're still loaded with potential. We're still acres of diamonds, and what has to happen is God has to open our eyes. You know, there's a verse in Psalms 116 that said, "Open my eyes that I might see wondrous things." That means they can be all around you and you just can't see it. God has to open your eyes to potential. For me, in ministry, what happened is I felt a calling to preach, and I accepted it one night. I'll never forget it. I heard a preacher preach, and you guys know Steve Brock. It was his brother, Ronnie Brock. Ronnie was preaching, and it just messed me up. A teenage kid, 16 years of age. I went down to the altar, I wept, and I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll preach. I didn't want to preach. I was raised in a preacher's home. I didn't want all that. I just didn't want to live that life. And to make a long story short, after I said yes, I thought, well, you know, TBN will discover me any day now. There's no telling how God's going to raise me up. It didn't happen that way. It took intense heat and pressure. Within a few months of me saying yes to the Lord in my prayer, bulls began to break out all over my body. I looked like a monster from the top of my head all the way down my body. I had a blood issue, and it caused these inflamed bulls all over my body. And I remember being out of school for months and sick and there in my bedroom, depressed. I went from popular and running with the kind of wild crowd and, you know, living life like a normal 16-year-old to total isolation, total loneliness, total depression, no friends. And in that moment, the heat and the pressure, I remember crying out one night saying, God, what a joke. I said I would preach, and now I'm so embarrassed. I would notice the lighting in a room. I wouldn't go out in public. I would sit in the back by myself. I would go to school, and the kids would laugh at me, and it was so humiliating and embarrassing, I wouldn't go. And I would learn how to do my work, and I would skip class a lot because I was so embarrassed to go into the classes. And I would go, and I got a key, a secret key to my dad's church, and I would go up in the balcony and sit under the sound booth, and I would listen to cassette tapes of the Word of God in that season. I had a walk with God, but I'd never had my own Bible walk with God. I'd never learned how to pray. I'd never learned how to really worship God. And in that church, by myself, God began, through intense heat and pressure, to teach me the Word of God. Incidentally, that same summer, I picked up my saxophone and started practicing it 5-6 hours a day because I didn't have any friends. I learned how to play the piano that summer in the church, on the church piano. God just made music connect for me, and I could just play anything that I wanted to play. None of those gifts would have been discovered had I been out running around every Friday and Saturday night with my friends. None of those things would have happened. Most importantly, to this day, when I write a sermon, my mind many times goes back to those feelings of isolation that I had, those times when I hated myself, those times when I thought maybe it would be best for my life just to end. And it makes me feel for that teenager, that mom, that person going through a divorce who feels like their life is over. My heart and emotions go back to those days in my life. And I'm simply saying, if God has you in a time of intense heat and pressure, it is not to destroy you. It is preparing you for acres of diamonds. It is preparing you. Everything God promised me, He did it. He just didn't do it in the way that I thought He would do it. He actually had to prepare me. God's going to get you where He wants you to be. The question is, will you be able to stand it? Will you be prepared to handle it so that when you get it, you're not so amazed by it that you forget about the God who's been faithful through the intense heat and pressure. And some of you are crying out today, how long, O Lord? How long is this going to last? I remember saying that. How long? How long? It's one thing when a trial lasts a week or 3 weeks or 6 months. But any of you who've ever been in a battle that goes for months and months, and it's intense heat and pressure, and it's nerve-wracking, and you don't know what you're going to do except you learn to lean on Jesus. And in those moments, Matt, that's when God opens your eyes. That's the very time when He'll flash those diamonds across the field and say, I know it doesn't look like it on the outside, but on the inside, I'm preparing you for something greater than you can comprehend.
At TBN, our mission is to use every available means to reach as many individuals and families as possible with the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for helping make the gospel of grace go around the world.
Without you, we couldn't do it. God bless you.